Hello, my friends. Hello, hello. How are you? Thank you for hanging out. Thanks for being cool. Hello, Kitty. This is the Outstanding Life Show. My name is Jason. I'm here hanging out. I'm being cool with you. This is the Saturday night show. We talk about addiction. We talk about mindfulness. We talk about recovery. We have a different approach when it comes to sensitive topics that are related to recovery and alcohol addiction. And today I wanted to do a show on hold on. Resilience and resentment. And so I made these like cool slides. So we're going to do resilience and resentment. I'm having a lot of fun with this, but my friends, I wanted to say hello. How are you doing? How are things? How you holding up? 2021 is almost over. I don't know if you can believe that. Like, where did we go? Where to go? Like, blink. I thought it was still 2020 for like a million years. Okay, let's see who is here. We have Sammy is here. Hello, Sammy. Sammy, cool. Thank you for hanging out, Sammy. Thanks for being awesome. Oh, and Laura's here. Hello, Laura. Thank you for being cool. Thanks for hanging out, friends. So, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on today's topic? We are chatting about resilience and we're chatting about resentments. What are your impressions when it comes to resilience? What comes to mind? Okay, let's switch over. Yes, okay, I did it right. This one's right. Okay, we're talking about resilience. So what is resilience? Resilience is I was thinking about this recently about what the definition of resilience is. And up till now, my thoughts were, what if resilience was we all have experiences and we all have encounters where we face that event crisis point where things get crazy. And when things get crazy, we have to grow, we have to push through our experiences, we develop ourselves, we develop, um, I don't want to call it like a knee-jerk response, but we overcome those challenges. And what happens when we overcome those challenges is we grow. And when it comes to resilience, resilience is, I don't want to call it the tenacity, but if we were to put it into words, resilience is the culmination of all those experiences, of all that backbone, of all of that. Um, I don't want to call it like creative growth, but it's growth that's come from those event crisis points in the past. And when we've grown beyond our experiences, when we've grown beyond, like the deeper roots have gone underneath the fence and it's become even stronger, resilience is what's left. Resilience is the outcome of continuous habitual growth. I don't want to say consistently, where we've been able to see past our, I don't want to call it failures, but if I can see past my failure, if I can see past my inability to grow, and I can pursue a life outside of those boundaries, outside of those restrictions. I'm not saying like don't do it crazily, but when it comes to resilience, it's having that sense of certainty where, yes, things have been crazy, but the outcome of that is we've developed this foundation, we've developed this solid ground. I don't know if you can relate to this, where some of the most craziest experiences I've had growing up in my adulthood, in my addiction years, it's caused me to develop a sense of resilience that I didn't have before. Things were crazy back then, and things are admittedly crazy now, but they're not crazy forever. And despite how impossible I thought things were, I think I'm doing pretty good now. I think, you know, if 2020 was a sign of anything, and 2021 wasn't a letdown either, it's been just as challenging. I would argue almost 2021 has been harder, like more challenging than 2020. But if it wasn't for 2020, I wouldn't have been prepared for 2021. And we're just ramping up. We're closing in around the corner of 2022. What are your expectations so far of this year, of next year? What are your thoughts on the resilience that we've developed over the past 18, 24 months? You know, if you were to ask me 2 years ago if I would be able to temper myself into this person that I am today, I would say it's impossible. I don't think I would, the young, naive Jason of yore probably wouldn't be able to predict what has happened and everything that's unfolded. I don't know. But my friends, okay, hold on. Here we go. Okay, question number 2. Can I be resilient and grateful at the same time? So now that we've defined what resilience is, am I able to have resilience occupy the same space as being grateful? Can I be a grateful, resilient person? Is that the right order? Can I be resilient and grateful? I would say yes. I say yes because two things. I can be, I can observe with gratitude the challenges that I've overcame, not just like respecting those challenges, no, but from a place and perspective of gratitude, I'm able to take arms, I'm able to absorb those experiences and through absorbing them, through defining them as resilient, through armoring and like Iron Man building his Iron Man suit, like he's making that suit resilient and he's clanging that hammer a bazillion times from a box of from a box of scraps. And if Iron Man can do that, and if Iron Man's able to build the Iron Man suit, then I can build my suit of armor, if you will. And I can still do that from a place of gratitude. So I say that through the observation with gratitude, I'm able to shape that resilience into something more, not just the experience in itself, not just because I've been able to grow and see past those, but taking if I'm taking a perspective that has gratitude first, And if I'm able to fashion these negative experiences and these troublesome moments into growth, I I am able to be resilient and grateful at the same time. I would almost argue you can be grateful with almost anything. You could be grateful and still be I'm trying to think. You could be grateful while still doing laundry or taking out the garbage or paying your taxes or any of these other things. So gratitude is amazing in the sense that it's a stark contrast to the addiction mindset where from an addict brain, from an alcoholic mind, those decisions that drove me through that addiction, that knee-jerk response was to cope by consuming alcohol or by consuming other drugs. Those that rationale drove pushed my friends and family away. It dug my hole even deeper that I had to crawl my way back out of. And it set a precedence that I didn't think I would be able to get out of. I struggled a lot by trying to manage my addiction on my own. And I wasn't in a place of resilience. Like I wasn't in a place of abundance. And I came from a very fearful mindset. So when it was challenging to first separate that, to draw the line in the sand, adopting gratitude helped develop that sense of recognition. So when I say I can be grateful and resilient at the same time, it's coming from a firsthand experience where, despite the craziness that's out there, I was able to see beyond those experiences, appreciate them for what they were, and make a decision that I didn't want to keep going down that route or down that path. Okay. I want to go back to can I be resilient and grateful at the same time? And we said yes. Let me know what you think. What are your thoughts? Do you think, from your opinion, is somebody able to be resilient and grateful at the same time? Can they occupy the same space? From my perspective, yes. I feel that we can be resilient and grateful at almost anything. Okay, question three. Here we go. When I build resilience, where does it go? And that sounds weird to say out loud. If I can build resilience, where does it end up? Um, where is it fashioned or where is it live? Resilience, those little tiny battles we talked about, those little tiny challenges that we faced, that's folded our experience into becoming something much more like that Iron Man suit that we talked about earlier. If we win those battles, and they're hard battles, they're struggles that are personal and there are challenges that are unique to you and unique to me. But folding those little tiny wins over and over and over again, you mentioned that foundation that's built where over 1,000 battles, if we can win 1,000 little tiny wins, even if it's a 1% tiny win, that little bit of perspective shift, that little tiny spark of hope, that's enough to drive me to move forward. And so when I talk about building that resilience, where does it go? Like, where does it live? Does it live in a house down the street? Does it live in my heart? Does it burn a little chair on my shoulder where it sits and it follows me around like a parrot? I mean, that sounds crazy, but where resilience lives is in the most unsuspecting moments that it will appear. I'm not saying randomly, but the next time I'm faced with an impossible struggle, the next time I'm faced with a challenge that I think is too far beyond my capacity and too far beyond my skill, or if I feel overwhelmed and I'm beyond my limits of what I'm able to do or to achieve or to manage, in that moment, that's when the resilience appears. That's when I'm able to appreciate that there's more to me than just an impossible struggle. There's more to my experience than just something that I feel is innately challenging or it's easy for me to want to be upset or angry. And I can say that being in full honesty and transparent. But I'm also able to, thanks to the perspective of gratitude first living, I'm able to move forward and see that, yes, I've built my resilience. And yes, it does help fold into a foundation. But I'm also able to recognize that if I can go through a million possible things that I thought I wouldn't be able to get through, the next time I see something and my first reaction is, if it is something that I feel is impossible, if I approach that event crisis point, whatever the next one is, like um, whatever 2022 is going to show, the next time that shows up as something impossible, I'm going to remember that I got through 2021 and I got through 2020. We all did. And I'm much more now of a developed person. I've built a foundation that doesn't come from scarcity and it doesn't come from fear, or it's not built on anything that's, I don't want to call it lacking, but there's more to who I am than just fear or anger or resentment or negativity. And we're going to talk about resentment here. We're applying the same questions, but we're doing it to both sides. We're doing one for resentment and one for resilience. Okay, so where does resilient go? When you build it, where does it go? Well, it builds itself into the foundation that I pride myself on, and I allow myself to move forward in a positive direction, choosing a path that's filled with gratitude. And that sounds silly, I know, but it sounds silly until it becomes true. Like it sounds impossible until you make it real, until you face the next challenge. I don't know if you guys agree. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. If you've had to face resilience, if you've had experiences that you thought were impossible, and that you're able to look back and with 2020 vision, literally 2020 vision, and you're able to see that you got through it. All right, my friends, let me know in the comments. All right, the last question. How is resilience expressed? When it comes to expressing resilience, it's not really something that it's not like an ice cream you can put on a bowl like it for dessert or anything. It's not something you can't make bread with your resilience. And you're not able to, I don't want to call it paint or use a tapestry or weave or it's not really a craft that is fashion, but it does show up and it does pop its head out. If resilience were a person, it would come onto your shoulder and plop down and show up at the most random moments we mentioned earlier. But I would say that resilience is expressed in those moments where we have that doubt. And I would say resilience shows up at the most unlikely moments, because when the doubt is at its highest and when the craziness is also pretty intense, I get to that fight or flight moment. And when I reach a certain level of uncertainty, when I reach that level of doubt or hesitation, it's easy for me to want to fold down and scrunch down and a negative move into like a negative mindset. But rather than adopt that, rather than fold in and to throw in the towel, I'm able to fall back onto that resilience, almost as if it's a crutch. And so when I say, how is the resilience expressed? It shows up as these, I don't want to call them like the Hail Marys, like in football, or you pray for rain and hope it all works out. You never really want to bet big on a random thing. It shouldn't be about throwing Hail Marys. And I don't feel that we're meant to just take wanton risks out of desperation. But if we were to build that resilience, if we were to build that solid foundation coming from a place of gratitude, this allows me to have the capacity to grow beyond my limits, beyond my fears, so that when I am confronted with true fear, when I'm confronted with true, I don't want to say anxiety, but if I'm confronted with a challenge that I feel is so great that it seems so impossible, that's when resilience is expressed. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. These are the four questions we had about resilience. I want to know what your guys' ideas are around resilience before we jump into what we're going to ask the same questions, but about resentments. So I'm really interested to hear what your guys' thoughts are. I've been working on something, but check this out. We're up to like 40 subscribers over on YouTube. I'm really proud of myself. That's really exciting. We did a big jump in October. I think I went from like 30 to 40. It was on my sobriety birthday, and I was really proud of that. And I never thought we would get this big. I never thought we would have so much fun together as a group. But I'm really enjoying sharing this, and I'm really enjoying making this content. And I hope you are enjoying it too. Okay. So, my friends, let's go and see who is here. Kathleen is here. Hello, Kathleen. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being awesome. And let me move my overlay off. Okay, and Laura is saying yes. This is true and it's very relatable. Thank you very much, Laura. Really appreciate you hanging out. Yes. Okay, what does it say? This yes, they can be. I'm struggling and I'm being resilient right now, and I'm still grateful. Wow, Laura, way to go. Good for you. That's really hard to I don't want to say like recognize it and separate ourselves from that difference where it's easy for me. I can speak from my experience where it's easy for me to want to run with that negative alcoholic mind or addict brain. I'm able, it's all too familiar for me to want to be super down on myself. And I know that sense of lack or that sense of depression almost, where I close in on myself and I'm the worst critic. I don't know if like, I'm always my own worst critic. And I know exactly what to say to myself to wind myself up or to get inside my own head. So when it comes to from a place of gratitude and resilience, those two things alone have greatly paved the way for me to move forward into the direction of progress that I am now. And I've still got a long ways to go. But I'm liking that you guys are hanging out too. I'm glad that you are okay. Resilient, yes. Actually, I think I spelled resilience wrong in one of my slides. Let's see if you guys can figure out which slide I spelled it wrong on. Okay, let's go check this out. So we did questions. We did questions on resilience. Now we're going to explore as a group. We're going to chat. We're going to hang out. We're going to go look at the we're going to go look at the opposite. We're going to look at resentments. So we've had separate episodes before in the past about resilience and another episode about resentments, but now I wanted to compare the two. And that's the idea behind today's show. Okay, let's go in. I did the other side now. Yes. Okay, it worked. So we're going to talk about resentments in 2021. Okay, so we're asking the exact same questions we did about resilience, but now we're going to go jump in and look at it from a resentment perspective. So, what is a resentment? At its core, a resentment can be something that I'm gonna give an example where I'm gonna stuff my emotions. I don't know if that's something that you've done in the past, but that's certainly something that I've done in the past where I've taken my expression and I've had a feeling. I've had in the past we've mentioned being hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. And the acronym is HALT. And if I'm feeling hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, and I'm feeling an emotion and it's stemming from one of those, likely that's going to build a resentment. If I'm feeling angry and I'm not, I don't want to say expressing it, that's not the right word, but if I'm not decompressing that, if I'm not decompartmentalizing it, if I'm feeling lonely and I'm just wallowing in that loneliness and I'm buying bunny slippers at 3 in the morning on Instagram, you know, what part of me is making the decision there? Do I truly want the bunny slippers or is it my loneliness making the decision to buy those bunny slippers? Nobody needs bunny slippers at 3 in the morning. I have bunny slippers already, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Okay. Okay. when it comes to resentments, if I'm feeling that emotion and I'm choosing not to express it, if I'm choosing not to share that emotion or to help better understand that emotion, if I'm just writing it off, if I'm just swallowing it, if I'm rounding down and I round down further and further and further, pretty soon it's becoming more pressurized. If I stuff a bottle, there's only so much liquid I can put inside that bottle. Unless I put even more in that bottle, and then it becomes even more pressurized until one day when I open that bottle, everything comes out. So when it comes to my emotion, when it comes to my resentment, if I'm feeling an emotion and I'm pressing it down, and let's say I'm going to take a total random emotion, and rather than anger, I'm going to take anxiety. So if I'm feeling anxiety, if I'm feeling anxious, and I'm bottling that in, if I'm not expressing it, if I'm not exploring it, if I'm not trying to better understand the root cause of that, and if I'm just sweeping it under the carpet, I'll deal with it another day. I'll dig deeper some other time. And if I'm looking at it from that perspective, that anxiety will eventually build. And if I start feeling a different emotion, not related to that anxiety, and now I'm moving into the anger, if I move into a different emotion and I've got that bottle of anxiety that's pressurized, and then I come across a feeling that's not related to anxiety, if I'm feeling, I don't want to call it happiness, but if I'm feeling angry, the next time I might feel anger, I might erupt that emotion bottle and all that anxiety, all that built up resentment starts to manifest itself unfairly, unjustly onto this event that's not related to the other thing. I mean, yes, they could be two related, but I know myself to the point that I've built up my resentments in the past and I know my emotions and I've had to map my emotions to help separate what these different elements are. And in my addict mind and in my addiction brain, things were only reduced to two different emotions, and things were either really, really good or really, really bad. And I didn't have any emotions in between. And starting rehab, going out to get some professional help, helped me understand my emotions and to map them out individually. And that took a long time. It took a long time for me to separate, decompartmentalize, and to not stuff my emotions. And now I make it a regular exercise to avoid that compression by managing that stress real time as it comes in, by not letting things harbor and build up unfairly or unjustly inside. So if I have something I need to share, I need to get it out there. I need to express to my friends and my family how much I appreciate them, how much I love my community. But if I'm also feeling anxious or anxiety or anger, I don't lash out at the first person that goes and by dumping it all on them. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to the situation. And it doesn't get us any closer to the outcome that we're after. But when I do feel anger, when I do feel anxious, when I'm filled with anxiety, I can start to ask myself what part of me is feeling anxious? What part of me is feeling hungry, angry, lonely, and tired? I'm not able to do that if I'm just building it up and not expressing it. Recognizing what's causing that emotion is the first step in helping relieve it. And it helps me to build a pattern. It helps me build a strategy around those. And I'm not always going to be able to solve them. But what I can do is recognize that it is a problem. And maybe there's something I can do to help it. And maybe if I'm not able to, maybe it's time to reach out for help. Maybe it's time to admit and tap out. The first step is always the hardest, they say. Okay, my friends, we've talked about resentment. I don't know if that's a clear description for you. What are your thoughts on resentment? Have you felt any resentment before? What's your opinions on resentment? Am I off base with this idea? Let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are. Okay. So I feel we've answered the question about what resentment is. But here's question two. These are the exact same questions we asked on the resilient side, but now we're going to ask it on the resentment side. So can I be resentful and be grateful at the same time? So earlier we asked, can I be resilient and grateful at the same time? But can I be resentful now? And earlier I said you could be grateful with almost anything. You could be grateful while you take out your garbage. You could be grateful while you pay your taxes. But I would argue that I'm unable to be resentful and grateful. The same space that occupies gratitude cannot occupy the same space as resentment. I believe that's intentional. I'm unable to, me as a person, me as Jason, I am not built to harbor both resentment and gratitude. So those two dichotomies don't have the same capacity. They take up the same amount of space, and I don't have enough space on my plate to warrant attention or to provide the space to grow for resentment and also supply the space to grow for gratitude. I only have enough space in my life for one of those. And it was a very hard decision to cut one of those two out. And it was very challenging to develop those skills over time, those little tiny battles we talked about earlier, that little tiny bit of resilience, that little tiny molehill that became a mountain, that comes from a bunch of different experiences, a bunch of different foundations folded onto themselves, so that I know that I have the capacity to fill my life with gratitude. And if I'm able to take a gratitude first perspective, I no longer have room in my life to harbor resentments. And if I'm feeling resentful, if I'm feeling those triggers, and we've talked before about the triggers, the hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, it doesn't mean that I'm not hungry. It doesn't mean that I'm not angry. I can still have these feelings. I'm human after all. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to give it the space to grow. I'm not saying don't feel. I'm not saying stuff emotions. I've done enough of that in my life, and I don't have any more room to keep stuffing more. There's only so much of me that I can build up. So what do? I allow myself to express the gratefulness, the gratitude. Living that gratitude first life has definitely helped me shape myself into the person that I want to become. I'm not able to do that if I'm holding on to resentment. I'm not what is it that saying? I'm not able to let go of one monkey bar if I'm still holding on to the last one. Is that is that how you say it? I can't move forward if I haven't closed the other book. I can't open one door without closing the other one. There's so many different analogies, but the ideas are the same. There's more to this life than resentment. There's more to what we're doing than just anxiety or challenge or impossible tasks. I don't know if any of this is landing with you, but my friends, we've been asking questions. Let me know what your thoughts are. I want to share this. We've got up to 40 subscribers, I think, 42 subscribers now on YouTube. So if you want to go check it out, definitely go do that, please. Also, we've got a website, outstanding.life, if that's something you're interested in. Those are just all the videos. All the transcriptions are posted up there. And we also have a podcast there too. I also found out recently that this is unrelated, but Facebook has a podcast option. And that blew my mind because I was able to send the podcast feed to Facebook. And now you can listen to the podcast inside of Facebook, which I was like, those are two different things. You can't do that. But I tried it out and I was able to listen to my podcast, which is the the audio version of this show, but through Facebook. And what was really neat is I could listen in the background. Like I could close the Facebook app, turn my phone off, and I could still hear the podcast because Facebook was playing it. it's really interesting. And so I have a little bit more to explore with that. And that's really cool because maybe I could post the podcast episodes to Facebook now. I mean, still post it, but then share it. I've got a lot to learn about that. I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm developing all this. I'm having fun with this adventure. I hope you are enjoying this too. Okay, okay. Before we move on to the next question, I want to check out the comments. I want to see. Okay, and Laura is saying yes. I stuff them like a Christmas turkey. That's hilarious. That's amazing, Laura. Like a Christmas turkey. That's hilarious. Okay, okay. Where did we go? We got as far as can I be resentful and grateful at the same time? Okay. So one of our last questions, I think this is the last question. When I build up resentments, where does resentment go? Where does resentment live? No, there's one more question after this. But where does resentment go? Once I've built up resentment, where does it manifest? Earlier I gave the analogy about as if resentment was a person or as if resilience was a person. It seems kind of weird to think of resentments as a person that would come out to my shoulder and sit down, but it's almost like its own, as if it's its own person. It's almost as if it has its own breadth and depth of character. It's not a full, complete character, mind you, but it's something that my resentments are. I don't want to call them a person, but there's a certain level of anxiety ridden, fear driven mindset that comes from harboring resentment. And if I'm building those up, if I'm compressing that emotion further and further down, you can hear it in my voice as I further down, like my voice gets quieter and you can hear my body gets a little filled with tension. So if I'm building up that resentment, pretty soon I'm going to be filled with anxiety because it's going to have nowhere else to go. Pretty soon, my resentment will, what is it? You'll get gray hair. I'm getting some gray hair. After 2020, 2021, I'm getting some gray hair coming in. And so it's exciting. There's these things where I'm not 19 anymore. I recognize that I'm getting older. It's getting colder outside. My bones creak now when I wake up in the morning. It's crazy. I am not a spring chicken. I don't have the luxury of being able to eat a bag of noodles and a can of pop and live for a week off of that. I Hey kitty. I can't imagine what I would do now, living off of box of noodles and a can of pop. I can't do that now. But I also can't build up resentments. I know myself enough that that's not something I have the capacity to do. Hey kitty, what are you doing? What's going on? Ah, there we go. It's almost Tosh's dinner time. Okay, friends. So when I build up my resentments, where does it go? Like how it builds up and I imagine it as like a bottle. And if I've shaken that bottle as if it's pop, it's gonna erupt the moment I open it up. And it's not even something that's fair or I heard this example from Tony Robbins once in one of his audio books, like the audio tapes, the what is it, personal power? Personal power. And he mentioned if you had a wound on your arm and it was a big gash, and that gash was, you needed to look after it like with ointment and medication and you wrap it up in a bandage. And if you looked after it, if you put the ointment on and you put a band-aid on and you cleaned it and it was healing, and then if you healed it, and then later, if somebody comes up and brushes up against you, but it's been healed and they bump up against your arm where the gash was, you're not going to feel anything. You're not going to have this knee jerk response because it's been healed. You've looked after it. You've put in the work. It sucked for a while, but you did it. But the other side of that example was, let's say you had the same gash on your arm, like the same cut, like the same wound, and it needed medication. It needed a bandage. You needed some help with it. And let's say I didn't look after it. If I didn't put medication on it, if I didn't treat it, pretty soon it's going to get infected. Pretty soon it's going to be painful. And any time there's a tiny brush up against it, it's going to be this huge reaction. It'll be like, whoa. So then if somebody comes up against you and they don't even breathe on you, but they have a cat hair and they put a simple cat hair on your wound, you're going to flip out. You're going to freak out. Why? And it's no fault of the cat hair. It's no fault of the person, but it is fault of the person who's chosen not to look after themselves. It's that person who's built the resentments to manifest itself in the most unlikely of moments, and it's erupting, and it's unfair to the situation, unfair to that person. It sounds silly, but it's something that I don't want to say I'm all too familiar with, but in my alcoholic mind, in my addiction mindset, it's definitely something that's held me back. Harboring resentments has no place in my life. Although cat hair has a place in my life, though, that's for sure. It's almost kitty dinner time. Okay, we've got one more question. Let's go back. Okay, when I build up resentments, where does that go? Okay, here we go. Last question. How is resentment expressed? So this is the same question we asked about resilience. How is resilience expressed? And in that example, we mentioned that it shows up in the most unlikely of moments, in the times when the chips are down and it's really hard and things seem impossible. The resilience shows its head. And as if it's a person, it shows up like Tony Stark in Iron Man building his Iron Man suit. The resentment shows up and it saves the day. Or not resentment, geez, the resilience. The resilience shows up and it saves the day. But here we have the opposite question. What happens when we build up resentment and what happens when we share it and if it gets expressed? Kitty, what happens when our resentment builds up to the point where we've got nowhere else to share it and it erupts? How is it expressed? It's expressed through arguments. It's expressed through challenges. I would notice that I would find people when I was struggling with addiction. I would find people who were also struggling and facing their own challenges, and I would find those friends, and I'd be, I know you're upset about something. Let's go get drunk to celebrate it, or let's go get drunk to complain, and it wouldn't help me. It wouldn't develop myself to grow. If anything, it harmed me more than anything else. So my resentments would express themselves in the most horrible way, and my resentments would hold me back, and it would set me back. And it would take me a long time to dig my way out of those resentment holes, if you will, where I pushed my family away, I pushed my friends away. I went through a string of bad relationships and it wasn't healthy and it wasn't helpful. And it didn't make anybody a better person. So here I am now with my 2020 vision after living through the mayhem of 2020 and 2021. Those struggles that I had back then seem to be like a cakewalk compared to today. But that doesn't mean that I'm resentful for the experience or that I'd allow that resentment to take up its too much space. I don't have the capacity to let resentment and gratitude both grow simultaneously. So I'm choosing to give more space and more time to gratitude. Okay, my friends, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being so cool and being all sorts of awesome. I want to say I appreciate you for hanging out and being cool. Please go and check out the link of outstanding.life. That's the website where everything is. We've also got a YouTube channel, and you're watching this over on Facebook. We're sending this everywhere. I think this is on Twitch too, but we're also recording the audio and it's making a podcast. This is so much fun. Thank you, Laura, for hanging out. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Kathleen, thank you for being here. But my friends, what are your thoughts on resilience? What are your thoughts on resentments? Is there place for both? Can we spend time and equally to give time for resentment and give time for resilience? What are your thoughts on any of these questions? Leave them in the comments below. Reach out and say hi. But in the meantime, friends, you take care and you have fun, and I'll catch you guys later. Okay, bye-bye.